High-flying action ensues, 1923. 16 millimeter, as we've said before, has come to be. A young man named Nick Millard is working with his father, Sam S. Millard, on a film called Tales of Virginia City in the late 50s. He captures something special. John Huston on a camel winning a race. What it creates is Nick Millard's first interaction with 16 millimeter. After this, in 1961, he gifts John Huston a print of this negative of him winning. 1966, in Sweden, a man named Rune Eriksson says to himself after many projects, 16 millimeter is imperfect. I'm stuck within these narrow walls of 16 millimeter. With his innovations of removing perforations and expanding the width of the image, you can create a full aperture 1:66:1 aspect ratio. It created an environment where people like Nick Millard could shoot on film without breaking the bank. So let's talk about these action movies, which just like Sweden, take place all over the world, joined by one simple thing. They're all about the action, baby. First, let's dig into One-Armed Warrior, also known as the Terrorists.
Chop it!
So, as we look closely at it, we can see a splice from Super 16 millimeter, which is mostly what this was shot on, and 16 millimeter, double perfed. Oftentimes the way to distinguish the two, that's colloquially known, is single perf and double perf. You can see how much more image you'd get on a 16 millimeter negative if you actually look at them side by side. And in addition to that, let's look at another 16 millimeter negative right next to it. If you don't need those extra perforations, you could save space for more picture. A 16 millimeter print film did not need both perforations to run through a projector. Take, for instance, this print. All you need to do is remove that soundtrack and push more emulsion to the edges. Alcatraz 13130. What is interesting about Alcatraz 13130 is first he would shoot on the Super 16 millimeter using that 1:66 aspect ratio. And then he would blow up to a CRI. So after you get that CRI, you make this, a release print for Alcatraz 13130. So Alcatraz, he anticipated was going to be one of his big successes. So shoot on 16 millimeter, and then you could make a nice 185 image on 35, or a 166 image. Shotgun, aka gun blast. Nick Millard largely shifted in the 1980s to distributing his films largely on VHS and direct to consumer. At this point, his films weren't getting that much theatrical play, but were very successful on video. So he knew that all he had to do was take his films that he'd already released on 16 millimeter and prep them for a different method of distribution. So Shotgun/Gun Blast is a perfect example of this. Within Shotgun, we have reversal elements which are spliced into the original 16 millimeter negative. Scan those two as part of the same reel because it was the same narrative, and then in video he could convert that reversal footage. So if he only had reversal on him, he could basically just splice that in, done. We have probably the most famous film of this entire set. 357 Magnum is Nick Millard action at its finest.
Up. Damn good. 3 out of 6 isn't bad at all. It's not good enough.
Gunshots. Action.
Why? I don't know.
That never stops and sometimes doesn't make any sense. Nick Millard had so much faith in this film's success that again, He made many copies of it, sold it widely, both on VHS and theatrically attempted to bring it to a wider audience through blowing it up to 35 millimeter. 357 Magnum was shot super 16 millimeter negative. Then he made a 35 millimeter CRI, and he would make prints. You have the classic Millard mixing of different formats. Here we have 16 millimeter. This is an internegative, basically copied from reversal. And then you have super 16 millimeter, or essentially 16 millimeter with a super 16 millimeter aperture. So basically taken up by that perforation. So essentially, this kind of means, unfortunately, because of this, we're probably going to have to stick with a 133. This is going to kind of have to match its video release, even though this was definitely a film that Nick Millard probably would have liked to have a larger aspect ratio for. In our exploration of Nick Millard's obsession and love of super 16 millimeter, we have the great and powerful Street Race. Personally, my favorite of this set. Is there action? Yes. Are there drugs? Yes. Is there sex? Oh, yes, there is. But the miracle of Street Race is that we even have sound for it. This is the only film element in existence, this original camera negative and the trailer for the original camera negative, that is not completely vinegared. The only other element that exists for this film is the full coat mag, which is, by my recollection, probably the worst piece of Vinegar Syndrome I've ever come across. We're very, very lucky that Nick Millard made a video copy to be sent around to different distributors to hopefully pick up. So we could actually use this beautiful super 16 millimeter negative footage and underlay the actual video sound.
So what the hell is this, blackmail?
That's right.
All right, goddammit, what do you want?
I think one of my favorite aspects of the movie is that every single time you see one person talking to another person, they're definitely not in the same room. They're definitely taken weeks apart or years apart. But this is one of the fun aspects of this film that I love so much. Included on this disc, I highly recommend checking out our new documentary featuring two family members of Nick Millard, his nephew, and his wonderful daughter, Valerie, who is amazing, incredible, and the biggest fan of Nick Millard besides me. These movies come at you fast, they come at you hard, they come at you with guns blazing. So I hope you enjoy them, because by golly, I think they're super. Watch this trailer.
The memories are all incorporated in all the normal family things we did. I guess shooting a movie isn't necessarily a normal activity at a family function, but that was my uncle.
Okay, one more. Keep rolling, Valerie, will you please?
Every film was his baby, and he just wanted to make them, you know.
He was making these little, small, independent, you almost call them dinky movies, kind of thing.
All right, now we get serious.
But he always thought big.
It's kind of his, F you to Hollywood. Like, here's a bunch of red blood. Here's a knife that I made out of tinfoil.
Stop! Don't burn me!
He is everything Hollywood, big and small. That's what he was.